Ladies and gentlemen, now we're into the blue economy. Some fantastic companies to come, and then an excellent panel. So, without further ado, what I'd like to do is ask my friend and colleague, Rens Leesman, to kick off the blue economy cohort. Rens, over to you.
Thanks, Andrew. Hi, everyone. 35 billion versus 10,000. This is an amazing stat, if for no other reason that it underscores just how much the ocean economy lags in decarbonization, digitization, autonomy, and really, truthfully, any other macro trend that's dominated the terrestrial economy over the last decade or so. But why is this? Why is it so far behind? Well, it's so far behind simply because the ocean is a power desert. Anytime you want to do anything in the ocean, you have to take people and power to get it done. That's costly, it's complex, and it's carbon intensive. We solved this problem by turning that power desert into an energized, data-rich environment. We have three products that we use to fill this market, and we are serving the largest part of the offshore power market, this gap that's roughly between 10 watts and 10 megawatts that neither wind nor solar can properly satisfy. Now, the Sea-Ray, which is our first product to commercialize, you can think of that system as an offshore cell charger, data server, and a cell tower, but offshore. And we deliver a very significant value proposition for our customers, some 50 to 90% cost and carbon reduction. I think highlighting the impact that our system can have, we have this growing, robust pipeline, and we're focused on 4 essential use cases: subsea robotics, data gathering and communication systems, operating kit, and at-sea vessel charging. So tens of thousands of hours of engineering, testing, design, manufacturing, supported by roughly 20 million pounds of competitively won federal R&D grants. We have 10 million of private capital to date that has enabled our first product to be sold. We have 50 patents with more of those things coming, and we are currently raising a Series C to commercialize and to help deliver profitability on our first product. So with that, I'll close. Thank you very much. I look forward to talking to you about our opportunity, and as Mark and Andrew have said, please look at our profile and deal them. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yannick Nyberg, and I'm the founder and director of Seawater Solutions, a company founded in Glasgow that's been terraforming deserts all over the world with seawater. Now, there's over 3,000 different plants globally that can grow with salt water. And Dennis Bushnell, the longest-serving chief scientist at NASA, one of our advisors, says that these ecologies solve for land and uniquely solve for land, water, climate, and food. And that's what we've been doing for the last couple of years, turning deserts into productive agroecologies that store millions of tons of carbon and create a whole lot of food. But over the last couple of years, we thought, well, the value here isn't just in agriculture and carbon, it's in the land itself as a real estate asset. If we're buying cheap land, undervalued land all around the world, and transforming it and terraforming it, we're actually creating functional and high-value real estate assets that are bankrolled by carbon credits, layering economic models from tourism to agriculture. This is climate asset management. So you're probably wondering, this is a bit too good to be true. Well, we're doing this, and we've been doing this for a very, very long time, from East Africa to Southeast Asia to the Americas. Now, as a proud Glaswegian company, founded here at the University of Strathclyde, we're excited to welcome you all to one of our projects here, right across the river from COP26 at the Govan Wetlands. And we have an open day on Thursday at 5 p.m. Find out more at bluegreenglasgow.org and, of course, at seawatersolutions.org. We don't take equity, but we do offer deals in which, if you give us $10 million through debt finance and other vehicles, we develop that land that you own around the world, and within 3 years, pay you back $30 million financed by carbon credits. And if the carbon credit market suddenly disappears overnight, well, you still have a high-value land asset that's worth 20 times more than when you purchased it. My name is Yannick Nyberg, and this is Desert Greening 101. Thank you very much.
I'm virtual and not virtual. I was pitched as virtual, so we've got a film. So I don't know when my 2 minutes have started. They have. Am I just pressing this? Yeah, okay. So, shipping. We all know it, we all use it, but we don't realise quite how impactful it is. It comes at a price. About the same amount of carbon as most developed countries. What can we do to change it? We can use technology that has been used for 8,000 years. There are 40,000 ships in the world that can be retrofitted or built with wind assist. So we've worked commercially with Drax to provide the demand pull for our autonomous, retractable, recyclable sails that will save 20% fuel. We can do all of this in the UK, but we're specifically interested in Scotland. We can create thousands of jobs, save hundreds of tons of carbon, and we like to work across the whole supply chain with hardware, with the digital enablers, and with the financial solutions. We're working really closely with Malin on the Clyde. We've developed a plug-and-play system. We've been hugely well supported by Scottish Enterprise to de-risk this project, and we have been able to design a £6 million project that we have 75% of the funding secured for from Scottish Enterprise and from industry partners. This is a truly collaborative project that can change the world. We can save between 1% and 2% of total greenhouse gas emissions. So we're looking for you to join us and help us over the line.
Hello, I'm Derek Robertson, CEO of Subsea Micropiles. It's very good to be with you all. We are a marine foundations company focused on the offshore wind market. Micropile technology has been around for about 70 years, and it has grown to become the dominant foundation and anchor technology for onshore infrastructure. Our mission as a company is to lead its adaptation for offshore construction. And we think there's a very big prize in doing so by reducing the cost of delivered anchors and foundations by half, while also at the same time reducing the environmental impacts of construction. Also, opening up more seabed to development. Developers currently avoid rocky, challenging formations. We make those formations accessible for offshore wind. We do this on the back of a revolution in subsea robotics, including the advent of robotic seabed drilling systems, which are used for geotechnical survey. They are form and function the tools we need to do micropiling offshore. And why does that matter? Because the world's biggest bet for a sustainable energy future, or one of them, is offshore wind. And as we migrate into new markets globally, with increasingly larger turbines and moving into deeper water, floating structures, the seabed is getting more challenging. And the legacy solutions we have from oil and gas are expensive. They are impactful to the environment. They are not scalable for offshore wind. And this is indeed our opportunity and our focus as a mission. The industry is catching up to this fact, and we've had an extraordinary year, both in terms of client engagement as well as supply chain partnerships. We have won over £6 million in government R&D grants within the past 6 months, and our near-term sales pipeline is moving north of £20 million. We are near closing on a seed round of investment, but the overwhelming challenge now looking into 2022 is scaling up, and we will be raising additional funds for growth capital and expansion. Looking forward to meeting you all. Thanks very much for your time.
So far, nobody's really unlocked the full potential of tidal energy. 50,000 terawatts hours per annum, that's what the ocean has to offer to us during the transition towards a renewable energy system. My name is Andries van Unen. I'm pleased to tell you more about power production driven by the moon, tidal power. As long as the moon, the earth and gravity exist, there will be tidal energy. But, there's a big but. So far we didn't make it. But Tocado has made a strategic decision. We are purely focused on turbine development. We've installed a device in the Eastern Scale storm barrier in the Netherlands already in 2015, and since then we start collecting data and knowledge, and we will apply that knowledge towards the future developments tide after tide. Hope it's working. Oh, sorry, it doesn't working. But what's unique about Tocado, we have a passive pitching mechanism, so our blades flip when the tide turns. We've got no gearbox, we've got a very straightforward design, and that's what will make it happen. Our installation costs are low because our turbines can be shipped in a container. And we think that's the ideal way to unlock this market, because in the regions in the East, Indonesia, Korea, that's where you need to bring turbines on locations which are quite remote. Tocado is the first full commercial turbine developer. Together with our business partners QED Naval and Hydrowing, we can provide the clients an end-to-end service solution by investigating the site, developing the site, supply the turbines, operate the turbines, maintain them, and finally also decommission them. We are looking for 2 million to increase our business model, to expand our global footprint, because unlocking the market requires capital, and we are now at the stage from moving from development of technology towards commercialization of this technology. We are happy to meet you afterwards.
I'm Sam Mail, founder and CEO of Xelim, and I wanted to start this quick presentation with two quite stark facts. The first is 80% of deaths from drowning occur in the first 30 minutes after entry into the water. And the second, in the last 10 years, there's been over 60 fatalities and 160 serious injuries of the testing of lifeboats alone. So why are we putting people in harm's way? Our mission at Xelim is to make unmanned search and rescue the norm and help build the wind farms and the shipping communities of the future. We do this by providing new links in the search and rescue chain, looking at how we find people in the water, how we recover them from the water, and importantly, how we protect them from that environment. We do this all without putting people in harm's way. Search and rescue wherever and whenever you need it. Because our technology doesn't sleep. It doesn't wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and think about its family and wonder whether or not it's going to return. It just goes. So, about us. We're a company founded by mariners who've had first-hand experience of knowing what it feels like to turn up late. Between us, we have experience of over 3 exits and 30 years plus experience of tech commercialization in the maritime and defence sectors. We're supported by regulators, including Her Majesty's Coast Guard, one of the UK's largest shipping companies, and 3 of the world's largest offshore wind developers. With £3 million of R&D funding nearing completion, we're now ready to commercialise. We're looking for £2.5 million to fund this, and we've already secured over £1 million from previous investors in previous rounds. We're currently backed by leaders in the offshore wind sector and in the oil and gas sectors. Just to close, 80% of deaths occur in the first 30 minutes after entry into the water. If you believe, like we believe, that we can change the game with this, we'd like to chat to you.
Hi, I'm Ken Morrow, founder of Hydrowheel, and we're looking for an investment of £300,000 to help bring Hydrowheel to markets worldwide and Ocean Hydrowheel to the prototype stage. Now, some of you may have noticed that I brought my children, Brodie and Keir, along too. Firstly, to show Hydrowheel is so simple that even their dad can set it up. But secondly, as a reminder that we are all here for our children. And I don't just mean that they will inherit our climate disaster. I mean that we have to prove to them that we really can invest in the future, that we can inspire startups and innovators and groundbreaking new technologies. let's teach our children by example, because to fix our mess, they must learn to invest and innovate too. So this is our example, the award-winning Hydro Wheel, the world's first inflatable water wheel, and it can be manufactured in the developing world from recycled plastics. Because it's inflatable, it floats. It's easy to transport and install in even the most isolated areas. But it doesn't need support structures or dams or channels. There are fewer surveys, less damage to local ecosystems. And the benefits of a large, durable, inflatable turbine also work for tidal and ocean currents. Ocean hydro wheel, inflated with seawater and tethered below the wave action, can generate reliable electricity all year round. And yet it fits in a standard shipping container, not the entire ships you need to transport and install offshore wind turbines. Come and partner with us, and let's prove to our children that we can build a more sustainable world. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we transition to the Blue Economy panel discussion, I'll invite up just to demonstrate how organic our agenda is today, a slightly different group than you're seeing on screen. First of all, Claire Mack, the CEO of Scottish Renewables, and then a friend, a colleague, sometime Greenbacker, Mr. Jim Wilson. Please come up and join me. Whilst they're coming up, could I ask the Blue Economy cohort please to stand up, to turn around, and to say hi to everybody here and online. Please, a round of applause for the Blue Economy cohort, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. Jim, Claire, thank you very much indeed for joining me here. What I'd like to explore with you a little bit, both, is Scotland's place in the blue economy, and because I see the journey that Scotland has been on, setting fantastic, ambitious targets, and then certainly being something of a sandbox for wave energy, for tidal energy, for floating wind. Claire, I'd love your observations as CEO of a trade body which represents the whole renewable sector on the role the blue economy can and does play in Scotland.
Absolutely. So largely my perspective comes from the wave and tidal sector, who are obviously one of the key technologies that we represent at Scottish Renewables. And I think one of the things that I always emphasise about wave and tidal, everybody has heard of the wave and tidal sector because it's great. It makes sense to people. They really understand it, and they understand how the technology works and why it works, which is great. But here in Scotland, it's not just about us having a few projects sort of dotted here and there. That's what I think is really, really important, and one of the reasons why we have that world leadership role, and one of the reasons why we really need to do everything we can to secure and maintain it, is that, aside from some fantastic projects of different scales, obviously tidal stream sitting closer to commerciality than wave, but that everything takes that same path, and we all know it. We've seen it happen in offshore wind, and there's no reason why those technologies shouldn't do the same thing as offshore wind have done, with the same opportunities and supports that go on behind it. Is because it's an ecosystem. So, like I say, there's a clutch of brilliant projects, but they're all held together by glue, which is effectively, you've got institutions that play here. So you've got regulatory institutions, you've got academic institutions, and research institutions that are all working towards that same goal, which is to see wave and tidal, become commercial. Aside from that, we also have, we've got people and skills. So I have lost count of the amount of panels over the course of COP that I've sat on where, people who worked on Palamas have been there. And we need to get into the mode of not celebrating Palamas as such, but understanding that what that's left is a really strong legacy of people who understood what went wrong, understood how to take it forward, and actually are, because they're all still sitting in the sector. They're still seeing them on these panels. And so that, I think that's one of the things that we need to really be aware of, is having the people and skills as well in that space, which have stayed here. And then you've got a really great sort of set of off-takers that are starting to come around about all of this. You know, we've got marine technology sitting within the hydrogen supply chain now. You know, we've got them sitting within an industrial decarbonisation supply chain now amongst distilleries and other people who are now sort of taking an interest in that technology. And that ability to really reach some of the parts of our kind of country with energy that is very difficult to deploy, you know, and you know, it's got that real kind of adaptability and that ability to go there. But one of the other key points that's always emphasised by the industry is, of course, supply chain opportunity, and Wave and Tidal have made it part of their USP to have incredibly high local content as part of what they do, because they recognise that they're part of they're part of a maritime heritage, but maritime future as well. And I think that's one of the key stories that I always like to wrap around our Wave and Tidal technology pieces, that not just a clutch of projects, far more to it and far more to maintaining that global lead than just a few projects that could rise and fall.
Indeed, yeah. And Jim, I think you and I first sort of met, as it were, when I was in Scottish Investment Bank and privileged to be running a fund there, and you were kind enough to step in as an observer director into one of the world's first big tidal energy projects. But you also have a background in a big energy business and in the venture arm of an energy business, and now you've been placed on some boards in the blue economy and energy sectors, which gives you a real interesting perspective on all of that. And I wonder whether you'd just like to comment on observations, things that you've seen work in the blue economy sector, particularly in the offshore wind sector, and things where perhaps supply chain hasn't been able to capture the opportunities that do appear in front of us, if that's not too sort of broad a subject for you, Jim.
No, that's correct. And don't forget aquamarine power, of course, where one of the early pioneers in wave power. And Claire's completely correct what she says about the supply chain. It's the one thing probably that differentiates marine energy from offshore wind that we're seeing today, is the fact that the local supply chain is so strong. Both in the Maygen project and much of the work that was done in aquamarine in Palamas before they sadly ceased to exist as such. So yeah, I think there's tremendous opportunity in the sector. But the challenge it has is probably the fact that it's been superseded to a certain extent by the success of offshore wind. And unfortunately, I think the government could fall into the trap of thinking that offshore wind was really the be-all and end-all for renewable energy in the UK. And I mean, that's understandable because the costs have dropped to such a low level. But there are other benefits in tidal power, that we know of, the predictability of it. And then in wave power, there's the fact that it's applicable all over the world. So these are two things I feel that certainly the government needs to take account of, and hopefully they'll actually go ahead with the ring-fence funding for the sector and go ahead and make some project awards. And that would allow companies like Maygen to go out there and start building out the next phase. If offshore wind's the best example you will see of the learning curve reducing the costs from projects receiving £300 per megawatt hour down to figures now at 40 and 50. It's tremendous success. And we could do the same thing for marine energy, just given the time.
I mean, one of the things I think is probably quite important for folks to understand is the wave and tidal sectors absolutely do have a role to play. And I'm going to ask Rens Leesman to come up to the mic because I want to bring you in a minute, Rens, if you wouldn't mind, please. But the history of support from Scotland PLC is genuinely very, very strong in this sector, and actually some of the early businesses that didn't proceed led to the creation of Wave Energy Scotland. And the interesting thing about that is that there's a European version of that now coming to the fore, following very much the same model. But Rens, the reason I asked you to come up was yes, the wave energy sector in competing with offshore wind when they're selling electrons is one thing. But Rens, I think in the journey you've been on, you've not been competing to sell electrons, but solutions. Is that right? And I'd just like you to talk a little bit about that, if you wouldn't mind.
We hold that ultimate mission to deliver utility scale power like other wave and tidal companies. But what we started to understand about 4 or 5 years ago when we did a project for the US military was that power and data were incredibly important. And it's not about the cost of the next electron, it's about how you deliver power and data where there is none today. And so that is, as someone once told me, you just want to be on the right corner when the marching band comes by. And that's, I think, where we find these smaller, lower power systems where they currently are. Because it is about being able to do something which you can't do. A ship which supports an ROV, that electricity costs about $1,500 a kilowatt hour. So it's orders of magnitude more expensive than what you would pay. And so if we can come out and reduce that cost, reduce that complexity, then I think it's a win. And that then just begets utility scale systems as we go forward. So it's one step and it's one foot in front of the other in order to get to the ultimate goal at the end of the path.
Indeed, indeed.
Yes.
Thanks very much,
Yes.
Ernst. Hopefully, it might be dropping that on you. So Claire, one of the things I'd like to kind of draw out from you as CEO of the membership body for renewables in Scotland is your sense of the health of that sector, just as reflected in the membership and in the, for example, the fantastic event we have each year, which is coming again in Edinburgh, just to get a sense of given we're here at COP and given there can be a little bit of a tendency to think this is all too hard and to be a little bit depressed and about it's not moving forward quickly enough. Can you give us a sense or your sense of that and what the enthusiasms are around the sector?
No, there's always a great amount of enthusiasm around the sector. Like I say, I think people, I always say that people stand in the ocean, they feel the power of it, they understand, what's in there and would, are backing it, they want to see it happen. I think where I'm seeing the conversation changing a bit, or seeing a lot of the conversation change actually, was when offshore wind, Jim's absolutely right about that at the moment, UK government, they've got a job to do, they're looking for big bang for buck. That is, they've got to get to net zero and they know that they need a lot of new renewable power in order to do that. So, in some senses, I can understand the path that they're taking. What is good is that if I go back to when I started at Scottish Renewables about 4 years ago or so, they genuinely had no concept and weren't really interested in a conversation around about smaller scale. They'd ended the FIT. And I don't see that coming back. It's not going to come back. We need to think about a different route to market mechanism for smaller scale technologies. But also we've got a number of technologies, like I say, who are just on the cusp of commerciality and can probably start to see themselves in that contracts for difference mechanism. I think what I'm thinking about is part of the trade body and is helping the ones who are those frontier companies get there, and some of that will be a stepping stone, and that's one of the conversations that we're having at a Scottish level is about, Scottish Government has got a very long track record of supporting this because they understand the scale of the resource here, and why our geography is particularly good for wave and tidal technology given the amount of coastline that we have. So that's what we're sort of trying to work up just now alongside industry and some of those players that you're talking about is what does that stepping stone look like? This isn't about, we're very well aware Scottish Government can't offer something of the scale of a CFD, something on the longer term as that, but that's not what we're needing here. Actually, what we need is just something just to help get us onto that rung. And I can tell you that we were having very similar conversations, with floating offshore wind and wave and tidal in the same conversations those sort of 4 years ago, and now floating is not there anymore because they have been able to push on around that sort of manufacturing point. That's been a really key point, and they've been able to really sort of demonstrate to UK government that sort of cost reduction pathway, and wave and tidal are doing that same thing, and you saw it in the presentations that came in there. Everybody was talking about modularized systems, talking about being able to ship them in containers, export market. That's really exciting. Really exciting. True, us exporting renewable technology. I mean, that's really where you want to get to, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty amazing stuff. And Jim, I was privileged to attend earlier this week a shipping conference and some amazing things going in the going on in the shipping sector. And just reflecting on Diane's presentation, Jim, I know you're not a specialist in shipping, but the idea of shipping decarbonising and using these retrofitted amazing sails, and perhaps those sorts of ships being used to help deploy offshore wind. Do you see a real future for that? Do you see, with the hat you used to wear working for a big utility, do you see those businesses being interested in that sort of development, so able to deliver the equipment they need, the hardware they need to site, but in a decarbonised way? Do you see that being a driver for them, Jim?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I'm a keen sailor myself, and anything that gets a vessel around the world using less carbon than they use at the moment has to be the way forward. And I'm glad you moved it on really from marine energy, because I thought we had an excellent group of people presenting there. And in some ways, electricity generation, renewable electricity generation in the UK is effectively sorted for me, or certainly within the foreseeable future. The technologies now exist, and as I said, maybe tidal and wave need to get a fairer crack of the whip. But some of the technologies that these companies are using to address carbon emissions, we're actually moving into the area now, the harder to abate emissions. And I certainly think shipping with sails or, other renewable fuels or other means of getting around the world more efficiently is the way to go. But I liked a number of the other presentations as well, and it's really good to see such a strong cohort here today looking at the blue economy and where we can make a difference.
Indeed. And Jim, I know originally you hail from Ayrshire, I believe, and Seawater Solutions, you should talk to them later. They actually pump seawater onto a farmer's field, with permission, I hasten to say, and grew a crop there. And guys, it is amazing. All of these people are amazing. I would encourage you to engage with them online and also in our exhibition area if you can. Jim, Claire, we'll come to the end of our panel. I'd like to thank you both very much indeed. Please, ladies and gentlemen, Claire and Jim, thank you. If you would like to.